Hi. One of the areas that students often find confusing, especially when they're talking about it in their essays and even in their analytical commentaries, is the relationship between coherence and cohesion. So I want to spend a few minutes today going through the relationship and explaining exactly what each of these are. So here we go. Now, coherence and cohesion applies to both written and spoken discourse. Therefore, it applies to both written and spoken transcripts. In planned discourse, coherence takes on a special significance. In a planned speech, for instance, the cohesive devices used are very deliberate, and they are there to enable the audience to follow the message of the speaker. So they're very clear, very deliberate, and you'll be able to pick them up usually easily in the text. But coherence also plays a role in spontaneous speech. Now, the speaker is not always aware that they're even using these devices. It becomes second nature to us because we learn to speak in a way that helps others understand what it is that we're trying to say. So first of all, what is coherence? Because this is where students get muddled in their responses. They sort of put the cohesion and cohesive devices all muddled up with coherence. So what is coherence? Coherence is when a text has devices in it that it can be understood. So in other words, a coherent text is one that can be easily understood. It's logical, it makes sense. Anyone can pick it up and follow it. It's very clear. So that's what coherence is. So coherence is the outcome. Cohesion are those devices that, by being included in the text or the spoken discourse, render that speech or render that written word coherent. So language has a hierarchical structure. Words, lexemes, have a lower rank. Sentences are higher rank because they're made up of more than one clause. Clauses are made up of more than one phrase. Phrases can be made up of more than one word. So sentences are combined into larger units, and that creates discourse. So to study cohesion, you need to think about the way sentences are constructed and then the way the sentences have been linked together throughout the text. So cohesion has a role in constructing coherent texts. So I hope that's a bit clearer now. So a coherent text is one that can be understood. The cohesive devices, okay, cohesion is the building blocks that renders the text coherent. So it's the mechanics of the construction of the text. If you're studying in Australia, we use a book written by Fox, and they use the word glue. So the cohesive devices are the glue that holds the text together. And I'm going to put a couple of references to Fox, just that I know a number of you out there who are studying English language do use that text. Now, there are a number of cohesive devices, but today I just want to direct your attention to 5, because if you can pick these 5, which are probably the most often used in a text, then you're going to cover out that section of your response. So you'll be able to respond in a way that shows that you know what you're talking about when you are analysing the text, that you are competent in your analysis. So I'm going to speak about 5 cohesive devices. The first one is looking at the words, so the lexical cohesion and choices. So let's look first. Collocations. Collocations are a cohesive device. So when a word follows another, and we expect that word to follow it, that renders the text coherent. It makes sense. And I've got some examples there. To make an effort, fast food, those common words combined together, they're familiar to us. Sometimes authors will deliberately, in order to jolt the attention of the reader or to draw the attention to a particular message, may say slow food, for instance. So you're not used to hearing that. That's to draw your attention to it. That's not a collocation. So it's the absence of the collocation there which is being used as a device in order to draw the attention of the reader. The collocations make it sound smooth. We expect it to be there. So it flows. The story flows, the message flows. Repetition of key lexemes. such as in that famous Gillard speech, which I'm sure you've studied either this year or last year if you're doing VCE English language, where she's referring to Tony Abbott as this man. She repeats this man throughout the text. That adds to the text's cohesion. It helps you follow her message. It draws your attention to the key aspects of what she's trying to say about this man, and in that case it was this man was Tony Abbott. Now, superordinates and hypernyms also are cohesive devices that add coherency to the text. So for instance, dog and crockery are the superordinate. Hypernym is poodle, plate, bowl and cup. So the general term is the superordinate, and then the more specialized word is the hypernym, and they're used all the time. If you get something from a dog magazine, you'd have lots of superordinates and lots of hypernyms. So to continue, the next device I want to talk about is substitution. So one linguistic term is replaced by a shorter one. Now, substitution must always occur in the second clause for the meaning to remain clear. So in noun phrases, personal pronouns can be substituted for the noun phrase in the subject-object clause. So Joe loves toy trains. He, so Joe has been replaced by he, has 2 toy trains. In verb phrases, for instance, I saw The Matrix last week, and then the other person answers, oh, I did yesterday. See, it makes sense. You can have that substitution if it follows the previous sentence. Okay, it makes no sense if you just walked up to someone and said, I did yesterday, but it makes sense if it follows. Clauses. Clauses can be replaced by using so. It's going to rain today. They say so. Okay, so any of those examples, if you can draw them out, that's what they're doing. And especially in written transcripts, or if you've got 2 interlocutors, these are the things that you need to look for. These are the things that help the assessor see your expertise after having studied English language over the year. Now, order. Order also is a cohesive device. We structure our thoughts logically. We stay on topic. We do that by using conventions like typical openings and closings in order to give structure to what we're saying. We also have inference to make sense of words or phrases. We avoid repetition by using ellipses. That's the omitting words that are understood or implied. And again, substitution, the replacement of a word or phrase with a filler word, such as one, so, do, in order to avoid repetition. So we have synonymy, antonymy, hypernymy. Look up in Fox and you'll get great definitions there. And also anaphoric references. So those anaphoric references, they're something that my students really like to pick up and like to talk about in the text, but of course they're not the only cohesive device that are used. Don't forget conjunctions. If you're sitting there and you're really nervous and you're looking at a transcript going, oh, I can't remember anything, just look for the and the but words and the yet. Okay, start picking those out and go, oh, I've identified conjunctions. These are also cohesive devices. These help the text become coherent. I mean, that's going to start you off, and from there, the rest of it will just start to flow. Adverbials make cohesive links. So a word or phrase that is used as an adverb to modify a verb or a clause. Adverbs can be used as adverbials, which, for example, I was here yesterday, or in a while. So you've got that time, okay, that time element there. Again, there's something that you can pick up easily in the text, especially to get you started. So let's look at first at anaphoric references. So anaphoric reference occurs when a word or phrase refers to something mentioned earlier. So we saw before that Joe had been replaced by he. So we look here, Michelle went to the bank. She was annoyed because it was closed. She refers to Michelle. It refers to the bank. So don't forget to identify both of those when you're speaking about the anaphoric reference. Don't just stay with the pronoun of the subject who's going into the bank. Don't forget too that bank also is replaced. So always show your expertise. Always go into detail with anything that you pick up, okay? And always link it back to your audience, your mode, your function, your purpose, so that you can show how it's being used in order to maintain coherency. So an anaphoric reference often makes use of the definite article, the, because one of the functions of the definite article, as you know, is to indicate that something has already been mentioned. So another example here, if you look at the slide, he sat down at the table and took a box from his pocket. The object felt heavy in his hands. Inside it was the key to his future. Both the object and it refer back to the small box in the first sentence. Now, cataphoric references occur when a word or phrase refers to something that is going to be mentioned later in the discourse. So an example here, although I phone her every week, my mum still complains that I don't keep in touch often enough. So here we've got the her used before we actually name my mother, okay, the mother. So her refers to my mother. The book was there on the table. I've never read Moby Dick and I didn't intend to do so now. So the book that's on the table in that first sentence obviously refers to Moby Dick. So when it follows, when the object is actually named in the second sentence, that is called a cataphoric reference. Now, something that I don't think is really expressed in your course too much, but it does occur in a number of your transcripts, is an exophoric reference. It occurs when a word or phrase refers to something outside of the discourse. Now, you can get this often when you've got two interlocutors speaking and then they're referring to things or people outside of the conversation that they are having. So something like, they're late again, can you believe it? You know, I know, well, they better get here soon or it'll get cold. They refers to some people outside of the discourse. So people that they're waiting for or people they're heading to meet. That's an XX, outside, exophoric reference. It also refers to something that both speakers know about. So there's an assumption then there, and that's when exophoric references can be used, that both speakers will know automatically what the other person's talking about. So the use of anaphoric references does require some shared knowledge between the two speakers or between the writer and their readers. So if you're getting an author who's speaking directly to the reader, then exophoric references could be scattered throughout the text because they would assume that the person reading this book, reading the text, already has a knowledge or an understanding of what they're referring